Larry?
Why is Larry? Oh, 'cause there's three.
Oh, we're swearing him.
We're not going to swear him. We're just going to acknowledge. I need to see.
Could be the last game tonight.
Which resolutions?
Otherwise, I'd be like him.
My wife is addicted to online camera. That was the only show she had watched, really.
Can you help me find the resolution for police officers?
Charles is ready whenever you are, Jack.
Right, I'm just looking for
He
the
came out to,
sending to the academy. It's, all right. It's page 33, yeah. And there's a Spanish speak, so it's 984 and 984.
yeah.
Everybody turn your cell phone ringers off, please, so we're not interrupted. Good afternoon. I'd like to call this meeting of the Southampton Town Board to order on this 9th day of October 2018. Please rise if you're able and join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If you could remain standing as we join together for a brief moment of silence as we keep in our thoughts and prayers all the brave men and women of uniform of our armed services defending our freedoms at home and around the world. Let's join together in silence. Okay, please be seated. Madam Clerk, would you please call the roll?
Supervisor Schneiderman.
Present.
Councilwoman Lofstad.
Here.
Councilwoman Scalera.
Here.
Councilman Bouvier.
Here.
Councilman Schiavone.
Present.
Okay. So, before we get started, there are two resolutions in our packet today that are sending to Academy three individuals for our police department, and those individuals are present, and I'd like to allow them to go off and do their work with the police department. So if you could turn to page 33 in the packet. There's resolution 984 appointing Paul Cruzina and Ralph Pepe, and then off the Spanish-speaking list, 985 is Courtney Turner. Those individuals are here with Captain Shirk. I wanted the board to be able to meet them. If we're able to take care of these resolutions in advance, I'll just have to ask if anybody from the public had planned to speak on those resolutions. So let me start with that. Is there anyone who came here to speak in public portion about the hiring of these three individuals? Okay, so seeing none, what I'd like to do is if we could, first of all, can you say your names?
Ralph Pepe.
Ralph Pepe?
Courtney Turner.
Courtney Turner? I'm sorry? Okay, well, welcome. I know you went through a pretty serious vetting process with our police department. Captain Shirk, is there anything you want to say?
No, just that it was a vigorous background check of all three candidates. All of this,
Okay. And then you're going to swear them in at the police
on Friday.
on Friday, police headquarters. Okay, so is there any objection from the board to taking this out of order?
No.
All right, so let me make a motion then to take resolution 984 and 985 out of order.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so I will make a motion then to approve 984 of 18, appointing police officers Paul Cruzina and Ralph Pepe.
Second, same second.
The same second, Councilwoman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations to you two. And one more, off the Spanish-speaking list, Courtney Turner. This is appointing police officer, Spanish-speaking Academy, Courtney Turner, resolution 985 of 18.
Second.
Same second. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Congratulations. the board is invited to the swearing in Friday, 10 a.m., I believe, right? Okay, thank you.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, to Sam.
Thank you.
The long arm of the law here.
Yeah, see how that works. Congratulations. Thank you.
I actually tuned you out for that,
That was one of my better ones.
except now the next half hour will be strewn with.
Did you hear
bad
my long
puns.
arm?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I know you love a pun, so. All right, so back to the top here. All right, thank you for indulging us with that. All right, I'm going to make a motion to approve the minutes of the September 25th, 18 Town Board meeting and the September 27th special Town Board meeting.
Second?
Second by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
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 Approved.
The following communications have been filed in the office of the town clerk. We have received public notices from the Suffolk County Department of Economic Development and Planning, Suffolk County Planning Commission, local determination for a landmark designation on Lumber Lane, Bridgehampton, Planning Board referral for Watermill Village Townhouses, and Division of Planning and Environment 2018 Agricultural Districts Program. The New York State liquor license 30-day advance notice to municipalities from the listed entity, and from the town fire districts, we have received the 2019 public hearing notices for 7 p.m. October 16th, 2018 for the following districts: East Quogue, Eastport, Flanders, Hampton Bays is 7:30, North Sea is 6:30, Riverhead, Southampton 7:30, and West Hampton Beach for 6 p.m. Proposed 2019 fire district budget filings from Bridgehampton, East Quogue, Eastport, Flanders, Hampton Bays, North Sea, Riverhead, and West Hampton Beach. Emails, letters, and land use applications have been received regarding the following: 2019 tentative budget regarding highway funds and adjoining neighbor notification for zoning board of appeals applications, Woodland Lane, Hampton Bays, Summit Boulevard North, West Hampton, and Cold Spring Point Road, Southampton. The following bid openings took place on October 4th for the request for proposals for yard waste facility in Hampton Bays. The following reports were filed from the town comptroller for the September 2018 monthly financial reports. And that concludes the communications for this meeting's agenda.
All right, thank you, Cindy. Okay, so we are going to move to public hearings. Madam Clerk, would you read the first public hearing notice?
Yes, public hearing number 1 on the acquisition of lands of Rotondi Properties LLC, Noyak, and amend the CPF management and stewardship plan to include property.
All right, I'd call upon Mary Wilson, our CPF coordinator, to introduce this to the town board.
Good afternoon, Supervisor Schneiderman, members of the town board. Rotundi Properties Limited Liability Corporation is the purported owner of approximately 1.7 acres of land located on Noyak Road in the hamlet of Noyak and further identified by Suffolk County Tax Map Number 904-331.1. This parcel is designated in the Wetlands Preservation Target Area of the CPF project plan as an appropriate site for preservation. Town-protected Trout Pond is immediately to the south and drains through this land into Mill Creek, which is a tributary to the Peconic Bay. Acquisition of this property protects the vital wetlands, and this land can also provide recreational access to Mill Creek via the existing catwalk and dock area. The property also provides an opportunity to extend the trail system to include a scenic water view. The landowner has expressed a willingness to sell this parcel of land to the town of Southampton at the negotiated purchase price of $1,750,000, and the source of funding is the Community Preservation Fund.
Mary, can you point this out?
Certainly.
And so the Mill Pond is right above it, is it?
This is Mill Creek.
Mill Creek,
This is Trout Pond.
okay. Oh, it's in the Noyak area.
Correct.
So that's Noyak Road, where it bends around Trout Pond, and it's on the left there, next to the marina.
Correct.
And this would be to remain in its natural state, right?
Yes, the property has somewhat been cleared for marketing purposes, but we would restore it with native grasses and work on a plan to perhaps utilize the existing catwalk.
This is just open space money, this is not the 20%.
That's correct.
So
Land
this could be
acquisition.
used as access to the water?
Yes, that's correct.
And there already is parking at Trout Pond, right?
There is, yes.
So they could walk across the road and walk down to the water?
Not
Yes.
easily.
No?
It's a
Have to
busy
be careful.
road there, and the parking is to the west side of Trout Pond, and that's,
Would it make sense to put in a couple parking spaces?
It's possible, and it may make sense to do that.
Now, what about as a vista? Is there, can you see the water over this property? Not necessarily?
Over the property?
Like, as you're driving down the road, is the water visible right there?
It is, if you're heading northeast.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So there's a vista that's being protected?
there is.
As
And
well?
particularly if you're enjoying Trout Pond, there's a nice view if you're up here.
Okay. And it's, the plants that are growing there, are you thinking that we need to maybe steward this property and remove not invasive species and things like that?
Well, the landowner cleared a lot of the property for marketing purposes. He had his permits to do so, but we would most likely bring in some native grasses and monitor it to make sure no invasive plant species invaded.
Okay. Any other questions from the town board? All right, thank you, that's very helpful. I have no cards on this public hearing. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard? Okay, seeing none, I'll make a motion to close.
Second?
Seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. So that's closed. Madam Clerk, number 2.
Public hearing number 2 on the acquisition of lands of KB Southampton LLC, Shinnecock Hills, and amend the CPF Management and Stewardship Plan to include property.
Okay, thank you. Mary Wilson from our CPF program will introduce this as well.
KB Southampton LLC is the purported owner of a vacant parcel of land totaling approximately .34 acres and is located on Hawthorne Road within the hamlet of Shinnecock Hills and further identified by Suffolk County Tax Map Number 900-232-2, Lot 35. This parcel is designated in the Shinnecock Hills Greenway target area of the Community Preservation Fund project plan as an appropriate site for preservation. This land is recognized for its special cultural significance to the Shinnecock Nation as part of its ancestral burial grounds. KB Southampton LLC has expressed a willingness to sell this parcel of land to the town of Southampton at the negotiated purchase price of $450,000, and the source of funding is the Community Preservation Fund.
Okay, thank you, Mary. So this property had gotten a lot of attention, as we know, when in excavating the property, human remains were encountered. So right now, this property is still, there's the hole that's dug, right?
That's correct.
Our purchase price is $450,000. This is, I know we've been talking with Shinnecock Nation about managing this property. I have a walk-on resolution later today that will create a joint management committee for an advisory committee for culturally sensitive properties. Should the town acquire this, this would be added to that list of properties. Is there anything more that needs to be said on this? Any other questions? Okay, all right, we have a number of people who wish to be heard on this, so, okay. All right, so I'm going to go to the cards. Each speaker will have 3 minutes to make their comments known. We will let you know when you're approaching your last 30 seconds. We ask you to address the board. If you haven't already filled out a card and you wish to be heard, please fill out a card. And I'm going to take them in the order that they were received. So, Patrice Trichin? You're going to have to help me with the last name. Tritron.
Trishawn.
Trishan. Okay, thank you. Sorry about that.
Yes, hello. First of all, thank you to the board for having this opportunity to speak before you. My husband and I, Jeff Trishan, purchased the property next door at 6 Hawthorne Road at the end of April of this current year. We looked for a home for over a year to find a private road with similar homes to ours, and we were thrilled that the house was very private on a private road surrounded by many old trees. Just before purchasing the house. The property next door at 10 Hawthorne Road was sold and immediately excavated, and we were surprised that there were no clearing restrictions, that over 100-year-old trees were taken away. We have two concerns. One is that there are agreements with the builder to restore the property to a similar condition to what it was. Today, the property is an eyesore. There is debris, excess boards, mud, a large hole, which you currently mentioned, and we want to ensure that before the closing of the sale of the property, that the builder will have some accountability to bring the land back to almost its existing condition, which we feel would include filling the hole, putting down topsoil, planting some trees, so that this property could grow over time. We are concerned, while very respectful of the Shinnecock Indians and the findings of remains, we are concerned about our ability to have a house on a private street, and for the property to grow naturally, so that, you know, we over time do not lose the value of our home, because we saved for a very long time to purchase this home. We do hope that, you know, as I said, that the road could remain private, respectful, that there might be times that there will be a ceremony, but, you know, we did buy on a small dead-end road that is private. And I have a couple of photos, you know, if anyone would like to see
I
the
may be able to
property.
provide a little information. So, yeah, the town is, this public hearing is about acquiring it in its current condition. There is an agreement, as I understand it, between the Shinnecock Nation and the property owner. Since the town cannot, and we are paying fair market value for the property, should we buy this? It does not include the restoration of the property. There's a cost associated with that. I believe there is a separate agreement that's either in place or the final details are being worked out between the Shinnecock Nation and the current property owner that will allow for that property, the cost associated with putting it back together would be borne by through a donation from the Shinnecock Nation. So,
Okay,
okay.
okay.
And my understanding is the skull would be returned, the flask that was found, I think there might have been one other associated bone, and then the earth would be returned, the property would be graded and seeded, and possibly some sapling trees brought to the property. But
Right, and that would be acceptable to us. We'd also, you know, ask that, you know, if there is a, you know, a marker, it'd be a natural marker in the form of, you know, a large rock or, you know, and again, respectful that, you know, we are not familiar with the customs of the Shinnecock Indians, but we are very respectful of their customs, but hope that, again, that there would be recognition that this is, you know, our home on a private road, and, you know, we would like to be as respectful to our neighbors as well.
yeah, I don't think the town would object to the grave being marked in some way. We'd work with the Shinnecock Nation on that. And that's the essence of the management committee that I discussed a moment ago, too.
Okay.
All right?
Yes, thank you very much for the
Thank
time.
you.
Appreciate it.
Okay. I'm sorry if I mispronounced the first name. Chenka Bullock?
It's Shanae Bullock,
Shanae?
like Sandra Bullock.
How is it spelled?
Chenae.
Okay.
Last name Bullock.
The Bullock I had no problem with.
Okay.
Shanae.
But my apologies for answering in English. Nadasuisa Kampanayu Mashuna Tuiusqua, Wachi Shinnecock, Wachi Montauk, Wachi Siwanhaki, Wachi Pomonok. My given name is Eileen Canoe. I'm Butterfly Woman, and I'm from the Shinnecock Indian Nation. I'm also a descendant of the Montauk people as well, and we come from this island known as Fish Island, and the Island of Shells. And I don't live here with my family. I'm here visiting and representing and standing with my family, and I just wanted to say that things like this are happening all around the world. And just the teachings that we have as young people from our elders that have been pioneering this, we are doing our best as young people to be stewards and create a stewardship with the town diplomats as young leaders. And that's very difficult sometimes when your emotions are struck, when your ancestors are dug up. We don't necessarily always understand everything that's in place in your plans. And so transparency has been something that it seems like this has been in the way of going. And I'm very appreciative of that. I just would like to be mindful to all of us that there is there are over hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years of history between the Shinnecock and the town of Southampton. And there has been many times where our ancestors, my direct ancestor, has been in this position to speak to the town board about many things similar to this. And I just pray and we hope that in going forward to the decisions, and it seems like it's going in that direction, that we all can uphold our word, because that hasn't been something that's always happened. And so I just ask that, in the decisions, because we're not at the table that you're sitting at right now. So sometimes it's a little difficult to understand where we're coming from with things, because we have a cultural way of looking at things, cultural way of speaking things. But we just ask that when you are making those decisions and your meetings and your conference calls and your emails and things, that, you do keep us in mind, our babies and our young people, when you're making those decisions, because we go to school with your kids. Our parents grew up with some of you, and I just wanted to say that, on behalf of my family. Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, Sinead. Okay, this is a different hearing. All right, Kelly Dennis?
Hello, everyone. Good morning, afternoon now, actually. My name is Kelly Dennis, and it's really been an honor to be able to work with this through this process, trying to come together with tribe members as well as the town board and the property owner as we try to figure out the best way to move forward. This is not going to be the last time this happens. We have over 20 other ancestors who have ended up in museums and in private collections, and their bodies are still there. And, many of them also came from in and around the Shinnecock Hills area where our people were moved from, and now in 1859, and now we live on the Shinnecock Neck. That's where our reservation is. So I really hope that we can, this all goes well with the stewardship agreement too that we'll be putting together, and that there are policies and protocols put in place for the next time a burial is found, whether that be on public or private property. And working with the State Historic Preservation Officer, a Tribal Historic Preservation Officer, it's really important for that process. And just thank you again for taking our concerns seriously, for meeting with us when our tribal leadership has called for meetings, and that's all. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the last card I have on this. Is there anyone else who didn't fill out a card who wanted to speak on this public hearing? Sir, come forward. I would ask if there's anyone else too to just queue up behind this gentleman.
Okay, my name is Tom Oleszczuk, and I'm a resident of Noyak. My wife and I moved out here about 6 years ago, and we love the area, and neither one of us belong to the Shinnecock tribe, but we consider ourselves allies. We have watched over the last couple of years how they've become more and more active and self-aware. And I have to tell you, I am proud of the town. This is, a remarkable step. It's a first step, as Kelly said, but it's a step forward. And it is the kind of thing that we need to bring our peoples together and to reconcile with some of the crimes of history. And I won't go into the details because we're all familiar with it, but there's a lot of stored injustice, if you will, that that needs recognition and needs some positive action. And I'd like to thank the board for its actions now and in the future to help heal the wounds and recognize the claims of the Shinnecock people. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ma'am, just when you reach the podium, just please identify yourself for our records.
I think you wanted to go.
Oh, I'm sorry. Shane? I saw you with the cake.
Yes.
You're just like a selfie? Live selfie.
My name is Shane Weeks, Bijiki Nabawit Nadasuis, Bijiki Ndodem, Shinnecock Nwuche Nishnabini Nu. My name is Standing Buffalo. I'm of the Buffalo Clan. I am a Shinnecock man and also a Anishinaabe. I just want to say today, as a Shinnecock member and also as a Southampton Town Arts and Culture Committee member, it's really a good thing to see the awareness being spread and the willingness to accept what we have to say and what we also have to offer, and the language I just spoke and that Shanae spoke earlier, at one time was illegal all across the United States. And, today we're able to be who we are freely and dress in our traditional clothing, as many of Shinnecock members here are today. It's an awesome thing to do that, and let alone in town hall, and it's a really, really positive motion forward, I think. And if the town decides to buy this property again today, it's a very historic time, for our relationship between Shinnecock and Southampton. So I just want to say to Bootne, thank you for hearing us.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. Thank you for your involvement in the Arts and Culture Committee. Ma'am, if you'll step forward.
Good afternoon. My name is Myers Bartlett. I'm the president of the Homeowners Association on Hawthorne Road, but I also happen to be the person that, unfortunately, because of severe financial situation, had to sell the lot of land, which was in my family for 50 years. And I, first of all, want to thank you so much for the meeting the other day. I left with a full heart. My shirt says how I feel, which is all together now. And I cannot tell you, I have chills everywhere that this possibly could be coming from what was a personal tragedy for me, the fact that it's such an opportunity for healing between the Shinnecock and Southampton. And the other thing I want to propose, and I'm hoping that you'll be open to this, is that I'm more than happy to volunteer. I would like the Hawthorne Road to be represented on this panel of management. As far as with the Shinnecock and Southampton, I feel like otherwise it felt really good to be in the loop with the meeting the other day, and I think that we're all very open to this being a smooth experience for everyone. And I feel that if someone from our
Thank you. Trying to tell us something.
our group was representing that
If I
way.
could just respond to that. So this resolution that is will be before us later today, it's about managing cultural properties, culturally sensitive properties in general.
Mm-hmm.
So in fact, this property isn't even listed on that resolution, yet 3 others are that the town already acquired. If this property is acquired, which I certainly hope it is, it will be added to it. The committee is comprised pretty much 50-50 of members designated by the Shinnecock Nation. The town members, all official, the head or chairman of, let's say, the Landmarks Board, or
Right.
a senior environmental analyst. It's largely technical in nature. I don't see why you couldn't weigh in on things, but in terms of
That's
putting
fine,
somebody
yeah.
on the committee
Yeah.
wouldn't make a lot of sense to me.
Okay. As
Because
long
it's
as
broader
you'll
than
be in
this.
touch with us, just so that we're a part of
Yeah,
it.
it's
because-
broader than this, but
Yeah.
you certainly, your input is welcome in terms of how it should be managed. I believe, this property will be managed with the highest degree of sensitivity for the cultural resources it contains.
Right, absolutely.
We're not, looking to bring lots of people there, so I don't think there'll be any parking, except maybe if somebody pulls over on the side of the road. Hopefully this grave will be marked, but this is a place for quiet reflection.
Yeah. Well, I always described it as sacred land, and it is sacred land.
Okay.
So that's
All right.
really
Thank you.
good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Serena Lee, and I'm a member of the Shinnecock tribe. I'd like to give a shout out to Becky, who has been fighting this for a long, long time. And those who have gone on before us have also presented these ideas to the boards prior to you being sitting in the seats that you're in. It's a long time coming. I can't say any more than that. We all have our cultural beliefs, our religious beliefs, and as you all know, this is a very sensitive area. Your ancestors knew that. Those of you that are from the original founding fathers of Southampton and Southampton Town and Village. Our history goes back way beyond that. We're not trying to discredit anyone's history to this town or village. We're just trying to say it's about time that we are recognized as the founding fathers. No disrespect.
And mothers.
Mothers, fathers, ancestors, whatever. And I don't say this, as I said, in a disrespectful manner to anyone. What I'm saying is that you ask us to do you something, we're asking you to do us the same. We voted for some of you when you sat in our chairs and give you our ideas about our waters and our lands. We're going to hold you to it because it's about time that we heal each other. It's not your fault. What we're trying to say is to correct those that have faulted us in the past. You're in a position to do that. We're not coming to you to ask you to give us the stars or the moon. That's not your job. It's to heal us as a people, to bring us together so conversations can happen when we're not at each other's throat, or you're not asking us to give you our last, because we gave you everything. You took everything, reality is. We're just asking for something back. That's all. Just a little something. It may be a lot because you're losing money or whatever, but you have to realize life is more than money. It's about your kids and our kids healing from all the injustice done to every nationality sitting in this room has suffered at the hands of greed. Healing. That's why the world is the way it is. Because I can't look at you and say, you bleed like me? You look at me and you see me on the outside. That's what's internal. That's what's wrong. Our kids are not learning to look at what's internal and what's important. The air we breathe, the waterways. That affects not just us and our nation. It affects every generation. And I'm asking that you respect that. Just give a little something back. It's really not going to hurt. It will heal. And the stewardships, we are stewards. Every one of us in this room are stewards of this earth. Every one of us owe this earth the respect that it gives us to sustain life. Period. Life. Not just my life and my nation's life, but your children's life. Your ancestors came here with the idea of freedom. To worship. To not be misunderstood as a people. And we welcomed you and taught you the ways to survive. Please, I'm just asking, pick up the tab. 50%, what, 50,000? Pick up the tab. Really? You're buying 1.5 million of property and putting in the stuff that was ripped out. And we got to give you $50,000?
You're not giving us $50,000.
Well, we're giving the guy that owns $50,000. Why can't you pay it?
That's a separate, the town is paying as much as it can legally pay for this property.
$1.5 million is legal? Are you buying other property? Have you not brought
No,
more property than that?
The price.
My question is, have you not brought more property than that? The value of property, the value in your book, have you not purchased property that was more than that? That's the question.
So,
Has the Town Preservation Center or whomever brought property to preserve it at a larger amount of money than that in history?
you know, of course, the answer is yes.
Okay.
But,
I'm asking you
but
to do
in
the
all,
same.
but if, in due respect.
I'm asking you to do the same.
In all cases.
I'm asking, it's no different.
It's
no different.
Please just allow me to say one thing.
Okay.
In all cases, no matter what property we've ever bought, we are forbidden by law to pay more than the fair market value for that property, period. Otherwise, it's considered an illegal gift of taxpayer money. $450,000 is the limit is what the town can spend on this property. Thank God, you know, we were able to work with the Shinnecock Nation and with the Peconic Land Trust and the property owner to close that gap to make this happen.
I appreciate that. And I'm saying gift it to us.
But this, again,
Gift it to us.
this,
Gift it to us. We gifted you our property.
again, I can only do what
And I
can
said,
legally-
there's a way to do everything if your heart steers you in the right way.
Okay.
That's what I'm asking. Let your hearts, not the money, not the property, not the ins and outs and the loopholes in the law. There's a higher law than that.
Okay, thank you.
Do what's in your heart.
Thank you.
All right, next.
Excuse my voice. I'm Tony Ernst. I live in Southampton. An apparent desecration of a colonial burial ground occurred 3 years ago when a fence was constructed on a town-owned cemetery by a private homeowner. A lot of attention was paid to this, and rightly so, since graves may have been disturbed. But the desecration of Native American burial sites and the once pristine land they're buried in continues on the Shinnecock Hills and other sites across the town. When members of the Shinnecock Nation met with the town board some years ago, I think it's 8 or 10, and pressed for adoption of legislation that would have given some protection to Native and colonial era settler graves, they were told that there was a limit to what could be done because of the property rights of landowners. New York State still has no laws that protect these graves. Other states do, but the town should finally enact such laws. In a rush to develop almost every acre, the town has subdivided most all the land, thus creating more Hampton's real estate with, quote, property rights, unquote. As the value of real estate climbed in the last decade, the funds accumulated by the Community Preservation Fund were insufficient to buy all the land that should have been preserved. I support the resolution of the town board to purchase the Hawthorne Road lot, but the town should fund or find all the funds to buy the land from its current owner. The Shinnecock Nation should not have to buy back stolen lands.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Hi, Jay. It's good to see you.
Good to see you, too.
My name's Steve Anderson. I didn't have any idea that I would come and speak today, but I wanted to come in support of the what's going on here. And you know, I've worked with Shinnecock for years now in just trying to be right-sized And in the remembrance of, I see this word up here, trustee, and I know some of the history between Shinnecock and the trustees of, and I know the lease it's expired, and I just want to stand and be counted, and everywhere you look is their land. Everywhere on this island, everywhere on North America, everywhere on Turtle Island is their land. They were stewards of the land before we got here. They welcomed us with open arms. And we've lied, we've stolen, we've cheated, we've raped, we've murdered, we've pillaged, and there's nothing that any of us can do to erase that. That's just what happened. History was written by the people who conquered, period. It doesn't make it the truth, it just makes it the truth that has been put to us. All right? I'm standing here because I would like to encourage everybody to change their perspective of how you view what's been put in front of us. We're standing here, we just put somebody in the highest seat of the free world. This is the free world. By whose standards? Okay? We have an opportunity here to stand and be counted and actually affect the change. Okay? And it's not about the red road, the yellow road, the black road, or the white road. It's about, there's only one race. There's a human race. We're all people. And we're earthlings. And we're not the pinnacle of existence. We're one expression of creation's divinity. And we have a responsibility to these lands. I was driving from Indigenous Peoples Day, which I'd actually like to see shift to Ancestral Appreciation Day, because that's all inclusive of all people. Let's face it, we're not going anywhere. White people aren't going anywhere, all right? It's like we're all here on this planet. It's a finite planet with infinite possibilities. If we would love and respect each other instead of divide and conquer it and separate and look at all of the things that are different about, there's the differences, there's a divine purpose in those differences. And if we realize we're not, we are spiritual beings having a human experience, not human beings having a spiritual experience. And if we could look at that, we would allow ourselves to move through in a good way. How would we, I was driving from Indigenous Peoples Day, and I'm coming through the cemetery in Brooklyn. How would we let, as culturally, would we let a bulldozer come and plow all those graves in that cemetery in Brooklyn? You know the one that I'm talking about? You can see from the BQE, the LIE, and I'm looking at it, it's the highest point. What value is that real estate? But their ancestors are there. We need to respect that. I'm going to just go on the record. It's like I've extended myself, Shinnecock, many years. Okay, there's a monetary value to that. That we've had an agreement. It's right around $5,000. I would like to go on record right now. I give that to you. I don't want to be paid back. I don't want that effort. I do that in the spirit of, can people stand and be counted and cast your vote with your feet, with your wallets, with your heart, and respect what's going on here, and because it's going to take all of us coming together, Jay.
I appreciate that.
And building platforms to do that. Okay. And sorry if I'm taking up too much of your time, but we've taken up hundreds of years of their time.
Okay.
And it's worthy of people standing and going, you know what? Screw the Gregorian calendar. Let's get in touch with what really matters, the earth that sustains our life to begin with. So these generations, these children have clean water, clean food that they can actually trust, air that they can breathe, and they're surrounded by love that they deserve. So, thanks for...
Thank you.
Okay, Vicky Hills? I got another card filled out. Vicky? Is there Vicky?
Sorry, I was in the other room watching you, so overflowed. And I wasn't here for all of the opening statements. I just came because I know it was on the agenda. 3 parts to my comments. First, I have an apology. Second, I have an observation. And third, I have a request. First, my apology is to a speaker who spoke before me at one of the Hills conversations, public hearings about water, and I got a little distracted before I went up to make my comments and missed an opportunity. I happened to follow a speaker who was named Little Stream. I'm forgetting her anglicized name. And I made comments about my heritage, my lineage. I'm a descendant of some of the early settlers of Southampton. And I missed the chance to say in that water, hearing about the quality of water, that it's all of our water. It's not who was here first or who was here last. And I apologize for my crass ignorance about how my comments may have landed on the Shinnecock Nation. That being said, I've also been the victim of theft of my home, objects, things that may or may not have been valuable to the people who stole them. And in addition to what they stole that was of very little value, the damage they did in my home, breaking my door, the structure of my life, that has happened to the Shinnecock Nation for a long time. And things that were not of value to the thieves, but were of great value to me, I would willingly spend top dollar to retrieve. The picture of my grandmother or my great uncle are of no value to them. They are extremely valuable to me. The grave sites are extremely valuable to the Shinnecock people. That being said, I want to add to it that I recently mortgaged my house so I could get money to renovate it. I was surprised to learn that even if it's not a new purchase, you pay into the CPF fund. That was money I wasn't expecting to have to put out. I believe in the CPF fund. I believe in investing in our community, preserving our community. That's why I supported CPF years ago and petitioned and worked to get that on the books and reauthorized. This is exactly what CPF is supposed to be doing. That money can be used. I'm a descendant. I am probably a beneficiary of the theft of the Shinnecock lands. It is with humility that I suggest I give you my wholehearted endorsement, full-throated recommendation that you approve this property for purchase by the through the CPF funds. And if you can't do that, anybody who's listening here in this room or on the television when you see it some odd hour in the middle of the day or the night, I encourage you, if the town doesn't come through for you, if you care about your community, if you want to preserve the cultures that this place was all based on, if you care about the quality of the water or any of it, if the town doesn't help CPF pay for this, please contribute to their GoFundMe campaign. And thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Okay, anyone else? Anyone else who wishes to be heard? Okay, I will make a motion to close the public hearing.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Can we do this, board, can we take that out of order?
Yes.
Yep.
So let's, anybody know what page it's on?
41.
Thank you. All right, I will make a motion to take Resolution 990 of 2018, authorizing the acquisition of lands of KB Southampton LLC, Shinnecock Hills, and amending the CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property. I'd like to take that out of order.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. It is now before us. I would like to make a motion to approve 990 of 2018, authorizing the acquisition of this property.
Same second.
Same second. Any discussion? Just on the motion, I want to thank the property owner and his partner, Michael White and Constantine, for their willingness to work with the town to see this property preserved. I want to thank the Peconic Land Trust for assisting in putting together an escrow-type agreement to deal with the restoration of the property, but mostly I'd like to thank the Shinnecock Nation for their heartfelt advocacy for the preservation of this property, the sanctity of this property as a burial site, and for working with the town in cooperation to see this property forever preserved. And I look forward to working with the nation in managing this property so that the importance of this property is forever protected. So, anyone else on the motion? I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Opposition? It is approved. Okay, we're going to go back now to public hearings. I'm not going to call the Stewardship Committee one out of order. We'll do that if anybody's interested. That'll be later in the day, but I'm confident that the board will agree to create that Stewardship Committee. All right, we're going to move on to the third public hearing. Madam Clerk, would you read the notice?
Public hearing number 3, to consider amending Town Code, Section 10-5, as it relates to the procedure for capital program amendments.
All right, Katie Garvin from our Town Attorney's Office will introduce this.
Good afternoon. Katie Garvin, Assistant Town Attorney. What you have before you is a result of the work session that we had at September 6th. The proposed amendment was modified. It essentially addresses, it allows certain increases or source changes in funding for approved capital projects to be reviewed by the Comptroller instead of the Capital Program Committee. As you recall, there was a discussion at our work session about trying to tweak that to make sure that any increases do not change the scope of work or use of the approved project. So I added that amendment. There was also a discussion to add some language to make sure that if there was a resolution approving a grant, that any conditions be included in that. So that's there as well in Section F.
All right, any questions for Ms. Garvin? Okay, let me just check if anybody has filled out a card for public hearing number 3. I see none. Is there anyone who wishes to be heard on this public hearing? And there's no further questions from the board. I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Thank you.
Seconded by Councilwoman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, thank you, Katie. All right, Madam Clerk, hearing 4.
Public hearing number 4, to consider Community Preservation Fund, CPF, water quality improvement projects proposed for Round 1, 2018 funding.
All right, thank you, Sandy. Mary Wilson from our CPF program will introduce this.
If I may, I'll just do a quick introductory and then hand it off to our very able Assistant Director of Planning, Janice Shearer.
Okay, thank you.
As you know, in 1998, the voters of the town of Southampton approved the Community Preservation Fund, which has been an overwhelmingly successful land preservation program. In 2016, the program was amended to allow for 20% of the funds annually to be used for water quality projects, which are not necessarily land preservation, but a litany of innovative ways in which we can try to protect our groundwater and our surface water. In 2017, we started implementing this new water quality program with innovative alternative on-site wastewater treatment system rebates. We continue to do this to this day. It started as a $15,000 rebate per household, which has been increased to $20,000. Every day we're taking in more applications for folks to upgrade their sanitary systems. The second phase of the 20% water quality program is what we call water quality improvement projects, which are again defined within the state and local legislation. Today we have a public hearing on those projects that we have received applications for in our first round of an invitation for funding. At this point, I'm going to turn it over to Janice to clarify those projects.
Thank you, Mary.
Good afternoon. Yeah, so as Mary said, we started our round one funding, and that entailed putting out a notice, and many applications came in, about 7. One of them was the same entity, but 2 different types of projects, and you see them here. We had a variety of different types of projects, which all are contained in the buckets of our reduction, remediation, and restoration strategies. So that's the way we wrote the plan, and I'm happy to say that all of these applications comport with that plan. There are different ways to achieve different water quality in various watersheds, which we're trying to get more granular on what needs to be done and how can we do it. The most obvious things that can be done are stormwater treatment. Stormwater runoff is a big problem, and so just doing stormwater infrastructure projects goes a long way to solving our problems. Especially, we have one in the village of Southampton, the village of West Hampton Beach, Sag Harbor. They're all working, all the villages are looking at their infrastructure as the town is doing and saying, how can we make this better? So the first flush of stormwater isn't rushing into our surface water. How can we drop that out, settle out the solids, treat it? And so that's what many of these projects are about. And I don't know if you want to go through them. I know you're aware of them. So I really would like to just...
Can you do like 1 or 2 sentences on each?
Sure, absolutely. So I'll just go in sort of the order that they're in.
And I want to thank you for that very thorough report.
Good.
Detailing each project and the recommendation for funding.
Yeah, I couldn't have done it without, I'd like to just acknowledge the Water Quality Advisory Committee, where these are a panel of experts that are able to weigh in on whether the project makes sense, whether the costs are realistic. You know, all of these factors require people who are in the industry, in the field, and who know what they're looking at. And so I appreciate the people that you put together on this committee to help us all, and especially you, make informed recommendations about what to fund.
Thank you for putting it together in a way that it was very detailed and
My pleasure.
very easy to understand. It was
Great.
very helpful, I thought.
Sure, and so just to quickly run through what they are, Round Pond was a project proposed by the town of Southampton in cooperation with the village of Sag Harbor. This is a stormwater mitigation and habitat restoration project, and they're removing sort of the road ending that goes down to the water and restoring this whole area, taking out the bulkhead, putting in a stabilized slope, adding vegetation, rain garden, and making it so that you can have a canoe launch, and it's much more natural, and bringing back that habitat, but still allowing for public access.
What's the cost on that one?
$187,000.
That's what was asked for, that's what was recommended?
That's what was asked for and recommended. And they have some engineered rain gardens, some bioswales, and it's a great proposal to restore the natural conditions in this area, and some good opportunity to analyze Round Pond to see what the conditions are there and going forward. The next one was a proposal by a homeowners association, which we welcome. There could be a variety of applications, so it could be villages, it could be individuals, it could be homeowners associations like this one. This project type was for non-point source abatement and control, and their proposal is that they're already putting in a bulkhead, and they asked to put a PRB, which is a permeable reactive barrier, behind the bulkhead because of it's hard, I don't want to speak entirely for them, but the way that the groundwater comes through to the Shinnecock Bay at this point is with such a force that they're able to understand the science, the hydrology behind this, and tell that permeable reactive barrier will capture so much nitrogen coming through. So, and they're going to measure in sections how it works. So it's also like a bit of, some citizen science going on, but also they're going a long way to nitrogen removal. That was so they're going to characterize that and do some public education and outreach. They had a lengthy 5-year budget. We really are interested in funding things that are shovel ready and for the first year or maybe 2 when there's monitoring involved. This one unfortunately did not qualify for the way they are, and Mary could speak better to this, the way that the state law is written. there's only certain things that are fundable and not fundable under every category. So monitoring in this case is not fundable. So the committee took a look at that and recommends $168,178, which is their budget to characterize it, put it in, the cost of doing the labor, you know, all of that is the recommendation from the committee. But their proposal was excellent. I just want to mention that it was well thought out and really well done. Third one is Lake Agawam in Southampton Village. The project type is non-point source abatement and control, and that is a series of improvements to the drainage system that goes straight into Lake Agawam. So that's a no-brainer. This is much needed. They're putting in catch basins, culverts, that sort of thing to get the stormwater out of the system that's running through that obviously may have pesticides and fertilizers and everything else that contributes to the degradation of Lake Agawam. So they requested $292,040, and that is what the committee recommends to be funded. Fourth is the Village of West Hampton Beach. There's two components. One is a Main Street drainage project where, so their project type in this case is a stormwater collecting system and pollution prevention. And they're already doing a comprehensive Main Street upgrade. And as part of that, they're going to do comprehensive drainage improvements between Potunk Lane and Mill Road and between Main Street and the outfall to Moneybog Bay. And that's important because Moneybog Bay is a 303D listed impaired water body, so this will go a long way. And they're also doing permeable pavers and all this infrastructure that I think will go a long way to helping their situation there. And also they're installing some of their sewer force main. While they're doing all this, their other side of their project is for a STP system, and while they're doing that and ripping up the road, it makes sense to put in the force main at this time, obviously, to think ahead, and also a hydrodynamic separator, which spins out the solids, suspends out the solids out of stormwater. And I'm not an expert on any of this, by the way, but anyway, it's an excellent proposal. They requested $1,458,383. The committee recommends $1,238,933, and this includes another $67,000 that the committee talked to Mayor Moore and the village trustees. They were very receptive to putting in filtration at the end of pipe treatment. So it's not just redirecting things, but we're also trying to, whatever does get through should be filtered, and they were amenable to going back, amending their application, and adding that component for these sort of filters into the catch basins.
We're giving them more than they requested? Is that what you're
No, the $1,238,933 includes that $67,000. It's less than their requested amount because there was some contingencies built into the budget that we subtracted out in our recommendation. The second part of that proposal is a separate project where they're creating a sewer district, a stormwater, which is the project type under stormwater collecting system and pollution prevention. And they're, as you know, many of you probably are aware, they're constructing a sewer system, phase 1, that will convey 60,000 gallons per day generated in the Main Street business corridor to the existing treatment plant at Bresky Airport, which is wonderful that Suffolk County is allowing them to tie in. It's shared services. It works out really well. The next phase of their plan, it's a large plan. The next phase of their plan is the engineering and specifications, which is a $1 million venue. It's a $1,130,000 cost. So that's what we recommend because that's their next step. And then when they get that and they have more true costs, they can come back, of course, and reapply. Just keep running through this. This is Mecox Bay. As you know, Mecox Bay is very important to everyone to maintain the health by opening and closing that inlet at the cut. And this project type is aquatic restoration. The trustees have worked with SOMAS, the Stony Brook University School of Marine and Atmospheric Sciences, to create monitoring stations in Mecox Bay, which will have real-time monitoring to understand salinity, dissolved oxygen, all the various criteria that they need to know when the correct timing is to open the cut, to allow that exchange. So this proposal is to do that, to install these monitoring, to do the restoration in the inlet opening. And I think this is an excellent proposal, and their requested amount was a little different. It's not much different. Their rec was $319,739, and our recommended funding award is $271,922, and that was based on the costs in the 2-year contract from SOMAS, and based on the highest cost for the times when they've had to open it and account for 6 openings per year to give them that, because it's so dynamic. It's hard to know how many. Number 6 is the Village of Sag Harbor. This is a non-point source abatement and control and pollution prevention stormwater collection project. And they had a very robust plan to do about 19 different projects throughout the village, many different rain gardens, engineering solutions, bioswales. Fantastic proposal. We spoke to them at the committee level and asked them, like, what's ready now? Because there's a lot here. Can you really accomplish this in 1 year? What can you really do right now? And they went back and looked at it and determined that they figured out what was shovel ready right now, and then what did they need engineering and design money for going forward. And they looked at that, and that's what their amended request was, $264,000, and that's what we recommend. And I think that's everything.
Did you put the West Hampton, there were 2, right?
So the drainage improvements are one, and then the STP is another.
Okay.
Janice, what kind of communication do we need from the incorporated villages on these projects? For example, the Village of Sag Harbor, the Round Pond project, there are actually 3 municipalities involved: the town of Southampton, the Village of Sag Harbor, and the trustees of the town. We're going to have
So it would be like an intermunicipal type agreement, and the resolution sets forth how that works, and that works with the town attorney and our Office of Contracts Compliance, what the best way forward is. It could be just an intermunicipal agreement was probably...
Good, so that would include resolutions from the villages themselves?
Yes.
Okay.
Assuming they are going to accept the award,
Right.
then...
We would have to, too.
Yes. So this resolution that you'll see later in your packet allows you to enter into in a contract or an IMA to actualize all of these projects, whatever the town attorney and...
Any other questions from the board?
No, but I do want to say something. I just want to commend you, Janice. This has been a long slog, and this whole board has worked hard at this, and I'm particularly proud of the results, and I'm seeing smiling faces here, which tells me a lot. It's a really, really good step, and staff has to be commended. Everybody that's put this together. I am so incredibly proud of you guys. This is really, really good stuff.
And you're not going to pat yourself on the back.
You should pat yourself on the back
For you,
as well.
because you've done a lot of work in this effort
Thank you.
with the committee and otherwise, and I know it's important, and you've really done a lot.
Thank you.
We couldn't have done it without all of your input at all times, and we appreciate the board doing
members
this.
of that technical advisory committee, too, they're all volunteers. They did a great job. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
I would never be able to do this without them, so that's important to acknowledge them, and Mary and Kyle, who lets me work on this.
Let's go to the public.
Thank you.
All right, so we're going to start with Southampton trustee Ed Warner is here. Chairman of the trustees.
President.
President? President of trustees, chairman? He's also chairman. Technically.
Yes, I'm president of trustees. Afternoon, Supervisor Schneiderman and the rest of the town council. I want to say thank you for taking on this initiative. It means a lot to me. I'm going to speak about Mecox, but as being a fisherman and a local community member, and seeing how the water quality has been basically going downhill my whole tenure on the bay, and part of my tenure on the board, it really means a lot to me that everybody's uniting to do these projects, because a common thread in all these projects, it's all going into the trustees' underwater land, and basically we were inheriting all the bad problems that are on the land. And to taking this step moving forward, I think it's a great step. So I want to thank everybody, Kyle, Mary Wilson, Marty Shea, and everybody else that worked on it internally, and the town board for taking this on. I'd like to just hit on to Mecox Bay, the water quality long-term management plan. We've been managing Mecox Bay for 300 plus years. The Indians, the Shinnecock Nation did it prior to us, and we were doing it on a limited budget and eventually selling sand out of there to incorporate funding to be able to have the ability to open and close and to manage the pond. I'm really looking forward to having this set up in a way that we have a pool of money on a long-term fund, so it takes the politics out of that area down there. It's so important to me, and then eventually we're going to bring forward a Mecox Bay management plan for everybody in the public to look at, hopefully adopt, and then we will have incorporated the Army Corps, the DEC, Fish and Wildlife, the trustees, and the town board, and every other agency that we work with on this project, so that we have a working document, that we have a long-term plan to manage that area and really take the politics out of it. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Ed.
Thanks, Ed. Trustee Scott Horwitz?
Mr. Supervisor, members of the board, I'd like to express my sincere thanks as the treasurer of the Board of Trustees. Making sure that we are able to provide the necessary services to all the people of this town and manage a water body and an ecosystem is important of Mecox Bay. Obviously, it takes money. There are a lot of effects in the proper management that extend far into and out of the trustees' jurisdiction that are deep into the roots of the town of Southampton, such as the farming industry and the commercial fishing industry, which I know that you're all aware of. This is going to allow us a great ability to manage to the advantage of everybody in the town. And in addition, there is a benefit to the taxpayer in that the trustees have been funding this out of our enterprise revenues for as long as I've been on the board. And what this is going to do is allow us to shift that off to the cost center, the Community Preservation Fund, which is going to allow us to work on repairing and rebuilding a deteriorating infrastructure that we have at the trustees. It's going to allow us to pay debt service on major projects for bulkheads and fishing piers so that kids can go crabbing and snapper fishing and people can enjoy the waterways without worrying about, twisting an ankle or snapping, their leg or what have you. So there is terrific benefit that extends outside of the trustees' jurisdiction and throughout the entire township. And I think it's just another classic example where there has to be a very synergistic relationship between the trustees and the town board, the town of Southampton, so that we can continue to provide all the services that are needed and we can take care of the environment to the best of our ability. And I applaud everybody that's been involved in this, and I applaud the ability to actually have this referendum to utilize this money for the water quality. It's going to be fantastic, and I thank you very much.
Thanks, Scott.
Thank you, Scott. Okay, next up, John Parker from Sag Harbor Village.
Yes, I'm John Parker. I'm on the Harbor Committee in Sag Harbor, and I welcome this opportunity to speak before the board. And I want to first thank you for working with us on this and on our water quality and other CPF projects. I wanted to emphasize here that the village has a commitment to improving water quality. When the legislation first came into existence in 2016, the village approved Nelson, Pope, and Voorhees to do a comprehensive water quality improvement plan for the village, both for the Southampton side and the East Hampton side, which included approximately 25 different projects. The ones that you have before you here were part of the projects that the village picked out. And we have others that we will be proposing in a further round, we're looking at this as a continuous project or series of projects where we want to work with the town to implement the rest of these plans. The village is also involved in having legislation pending, similar to what the town has, to require innovative low nitrogen systems for new construction and substantial reconstruction. The village has a water testing plan that they put into effect with Dr. Gobler, and we've worked with the trustees in terms of funding for that. So we'll have some baseline and be able to report on improvements to the water quality. There's also a question, we have a sewage treatment plant, and I think in the future we'll be looking at possible expansion of the sewer district and the sewage treatment plant, and would like to come to Southampton for help on that through the CPF water quality funding. So I just want to emphasize that this is we're looking at this in a comprehensive manner and on a long-term basis rather than just a one-shot with a few projects. What's being recommended here are those that are, as Janice said, that can be done fairly quickly. Others, such as anything involving a sewage treatment plant, would be a longer-term project, although we have had studies done on doing that, so it's something that we'll be considering. So we thank you very much, and we'll look forward to working with you further on this.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, Anthony Ernst? He spoke earlier, so perhaps he filled out a yellow card.
We have a letter from him.
He said hearing 4, but I think he spoke the Hawthorne one. All right, that's it for yellow cards. Is there anyone else? Madam Mayor, did you want to say? Any of the trustees? We got
oh boy, you got the whole crew
village
here.
board here.
Don't mess with Maria.
You'll get more than you're asking for.
We have a quorum.
Well, these two projects are incredibly important to the village, and they're going to have a big impact, a positive impact on the water quality in Moneybog Bay. We're very grateful to the committee for making these recommendations, and we're here to answer any questions you might have about the project and to thank you for your consideration.
Do we have any questions for the mayor or any of the trustees? They're great projects. They're worthy of funding. So
well, thank you.
Thank you. That's a good start, guys.
We'll be back next year.
Because we're going to try to take this out of order in a minute. So, all right, thank you.
Thanks for your support.
Thank
you very much.
Anyone else who has not spoken?
We don't have it. Page 9.
It's not in the packet?
Yeah, it's there.
Is it?
It's there, I didn't see it.
All right, stick around, trustees. We're going to try to take this out of order.
So I'd make a motion?
Not yet. I haven't
it
closed
up?
the hearing yet. So, is there anyone else who wishes to be heard who has not spoken?
Page 9, thank you.
All right, so I will make a motion to close the hearing.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And John?
My motion to take this out of order.
All right, so Councilman Bouvier is making a motion to
It's on
take
page 9,
resolution
Town Board Resolution
959 out of order, authorizing the supervisor to sign any and all agreements for water quality improvement projects funds to be distributed. Was there a second to that?
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Scalera to take out of order. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, so now it is before us. John, it's your resolution here?
You want me to read it?
959, yep.
Okay. So Town Board Resolution 218-959 authorizes supervisor to sign any and all agreements for water quality improvement project funds to be distributed.
Same second.
Same
Seconded
second.
by Councilwoman Scalera. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
All
Abstentions?
right.
Approved. All right. Congratulations, everybody. And again, to all those involved in providing technical expertise for the board, thank you so much. All right, so we are back to public hearings, and we are on public hearing number 5. Madam Clerk?
Public hearing number 5, to consider historic landmark designation of the Allenson Topping Arthur H. Newman residence located at 189 Lumber Lane, Bridgehampton.
All right, is there someone introducing this? If not, Ed Woznovsky from our Landmarks Committee, Chair of our Landmarks Committee will introduce it.
Good afternoon, Supervisor, members of the council, and Town Clerk Shermariah. I'm here speaking on behalf of the Landmarks Board recommendation that the town designate 189 Lumber Lane as the Arthur H. Newman Jr. House. The house I'm sorry I don't have a larger, but this is the way it looked at 10 o'clock this morning. And my printer doesn't get any bigger.
It's nice.
This house, we found, met 4 of the 6 criteria in the town code for designating a landmark. The 4 provisions of the code that the house possesses special aesthetic interest as part of the cultural, political, economic, and social history of the locality. We found it's identified with historic personages of the town. We found that it embodies the distinguishing characteristics of an architectural type, which is the 3rd. And because of its unique location, it is a familiar place for many who travel through the Bridgehampton community. And let me just briefly describe each of these. The architectural form that you see is of a Greek Revival style in an American farmhouse variation. That is, it's not the most elaborate. Has elements of plainness to the Greek Revival style. And just for example, just to contrast it, the plasters on the corner are flat. The more fancy style would be fluted, like those behind you in this room, which bears some elements of the Greek Revival. And it has an absence of some of the more elaborate styles that are associated, but still it's very distinctive with its triangular pediment. Has dental ornamentation along the triangular pediment, which is much in the characteristic of the old Greek temples, which were the models for the style. It's identified with historic personages in the locality. The 2 most important are first the builder of the house, Captain Allinson Topping. Captain Allinson Topping was a kind of member of a political quartet in Southampton town who were very powerful, both not only in the town but the county and New York State politics, and even to some degree national politics, because some members of that group served as presidential electors in the middle of the 19th century. It involved Abraham Topping Rose, the Topping Rose House being a noted feature of Bridgehampton's community, Judge Henry P. Hedges, who was a Suffolk County judge, surrogate judge, assemblyman, you name it. He was through a long series of political offices. And it involved others in the Bridgehampton community of particular prominence as well, Judge Hugh Halsey being another judge who was involved in the, and an assemblyman who was a part of this political quartet. Captain Topping built it for his sister when she got married, and the sister soon moved out. The period of time was 1854, 1855 when the house was constructed. After the sister and the brother-in-law, her husband, moved to Brooklyn and eventually to New Jersey, a family, the Topping sold the house to another family, Jacob Strong family, and Jacob Strong family, and down through the long life of the stepdaughter of Jacob Strong, Hattie Skellinger, She had the house until about 1939. A few quick property changes in 39, 40, 41 among some farmers in Bridgehampton eventually led to the house being purchased by the second most prominent personage connected to the house, and that was Arthur Hempstead Newman, an architect. He was born in Bridgehampton, 1894, and had trained at Union College as an engineer, went off to war in France in World War I, returned, trained as an architect at Yale University, went to work for the U.S. government for a while in the Dominican Republic until the middle of the 1930s, and resettled in Bridgehampton. Arthur Newman was the son of another powerful individual in Bridgehampton history, and that was Arthur Newman Sr., who was for 41 years the pastor of the Presbyterian Church in Bridgehampton. And in effect, he was the mayor of the town. He and the elders were the basic deciders and operators of much of the affairs of the community. They were instrumental in putting the Founders Monument in Bridgehampton on Montauk Highway. Some say it's in the middle of Montauk Highway, but it is there. And they saw to its dedication in 1910. Arthur Newman did. Arthur Newman Jr., the architect, is responsible for a lot of architectural elements of Southampton town, as well as other places in Suffolk County. In fact, members of the Shinnecock Nation who are no longer here might have been interested to know that Arthur Newman designed the Presbyterian Church that is on the reservation now in 1939 after the original church was destroyed in the 1938 hurricane. Newman also redesigned the Presbyterian Church on Main Street in East Hampton, redid the Presbyterian Church in Bridgehampton. He did the American Legion Hall in Sag Harbor, put on wings to the library in East Hampton. The name of the library in East Hampton is
John Germain.
Not sure, that's Sag Harbor. I forget.
East Hampton.
I forget, but it's the library on East Hampton Main Street. He put on the wing there, and he designed the East Hampton Firehouse. That is brick in character. Many of his architectural styles reflect his belief in a kind of colonial revival and a colonial aesthetic that he put into his buildings. And also he did give a little accolade to the Greek Revival style because he did the Elks Club on 39 with the columns and the pediment as well when he remodeled that. So Arthur Newman's, and he did many houses in East Hampton for wealthy patrons, which he had a fair clientele with. Newman died in 1983, I believe, after a long career in architecture. The Newman name is well known in Bridgehampton. There is a Newman Avenue that runs off of Corwith Avenue. Corwith Avenue running north to south from Montauk Highway down to the railroad station area. And on the east side of Corwith Avenue was Newman Avenue, where the Newman family, the Reverend Newman, had his parsonage for a long period of time. He married into the Corwith family, and as a consequence, Newman Village, which is the office condominium where Assemblyman Thiel has his office, and the residential condominiums behind that Newman Village, that is and was from Arthur Newman family real estate. So their presence in Bridgehampton is quite powerful. and their place in the history of the community is also very significant. And so with that, we are
Thank
here
you,
to say that.
very thorough.
Yes.
Thank you. We're impressed.
I will say to compliment one other party here, the grandchildren of the Newman family, of Arthur Newman Jr. One lives in Charlottesville, Virginia, the other in Brooklyn. They no longer are resident of the community, but they wanted to landmark the house before they ever thought about selling it. So, and I think they deserve praise for that.
Oh, great.
That's great. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you, Ed. Any questions for Ed before he sits down?
Great reading.
All right. Thank you for that very thorough examination of this property. Is there any, I don't think I have any other cards there. I know a lot of people from the Bridgehampton community are here. Anybody who wishes to be heard on this? No. Sure, Pam?
Hi, I'm Pamela Harwood, Chair of the Bridgehampton CAC. I just wish to let you know that I took an informal poll of the members of the CAC about this, and it was the general feeling that anything we can do to preserve a property, and especially one of historic significance with a family of historic significance, that we wish to do so and thereby also prevent overdevelopment of the same property. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Did you want to say something, David?
Yes.
Dave Wilcox, our planning director.
The resolution was submitted, and it overlooked the financial impact that this resolution would have.
Yeah, we have that. We're gonna actually
Okay.
try to take it out of order, Dave, and then go ahead and make the amendment on the floor and vote on it.
Okay, and you have the correct fund that it should be funded?
Yes.
The Saponic Historic Preservation PDD Fund?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Great, thanks.
All right, so, one more time, anybody else who wants to be heard? All right, I'll make a motion to close public hearing, close the public hearing. Do I have a second? It's seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All right, Councilman Bouvier or Scavone, you guys are co-sponsoring, you want to take this out of order?
Yes, please.
You're making that motion?
I will
John-
make that
And
motion.
Tommy John, you're second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. This is Resolution 973 on page 23.
23.
Okay, so you want to read the resolution?
Yeah, I need to make an amendment on it.
Okay.
First. So on the financial impact, we're going to add the Sabonic Mixed Use PDD Special Agency and Trust Account R3-99-R302-0-6420-000.
Sunday, do you get that?
Yeah, she gave it to me.
Okay.
Way ahead of us.
All right,
All
so
right.
there's a motion to amend by Councilman Bouvier, seconded
I'll second
by
it.
Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, now motion to approve as amended. Same second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. Okay, thank you. All right,
Thank you, guys. Thank you, Dave. Thanks, Ed.
okay, so that concludes our public hearings. We're going to move on to public portion. And I have a number of cards. Again, I remind everybody 3 minutes is your allocation of time. My cards are, just give me a second to get them in number order. This one is not numbered. Okay, we will start with Nancy Kane.
Hi. My name's Nancy Kane. Good afternoon. It's been a minute since I checked in on the status of the Lewis Road PRD, the project by Discovery Land Company, a company I know has already done so much for the community and has had such unwarranted opposition. And I was puzzled to discover the recent roadblock Mr. Scavone has erected. For one, I am confused that Mr. Scavone would argue for a law that reduces active recreation spaces in the town of Southampton. I grew up here, and I know you did too. I remember reading an article where you were running for office, and you said you camped in the woods and played golf here. I did too. I can't imagine my beach club where I spent my childhood summers without tennis courts because of a restriction in the acreage to build them. I can't imagine my brother would have gone on to run a golf camp at his school if he hadn't been able to play on the golf courses here as a kid. I would never have learned to play tennis. I truly can't imagine a town of Southampton with limited outdoor recreation such as the one Mr. Schiavone is trying to place on the golf course at the Lewis Road property. It seems very targeted to me, and that seems unfair. I'm also concerned that this sets a dangerous precedent. What is next? If I buy a house and some land and want to build a tennis court, will I be restricted? If I adhere to variances and guidelines as Discovery Land has, will I be penalized? Will my friends and my neighbors? And furthermore, why should any tax-paying resident of the town of Southampton have such constraints? It will devalue property and discourage people from moving here. They'll go to Cape Cod and the Hudson Valley. Why is Mr. Schiavone interfering in an active pre-existing application before the Town Planning Board? What is the rush on this item when there is no issue here? It seems like an underhanded way to punish Discovery Land, a company, as I mentioned, which has already done a lot of good for this community. And for what purpose? Reducing active recreational space in a town known for its outdoors, known for its seasonal beautiful weather that encourages people to go outside and be active and play golf or tennis or participate in other activities outdoors? Will Mr. Schiavone next start trying to restrict the waterways I learned to swim in? I mean, I just don't understand how a former teacher would argue that a less physical lifestyle is what residents of this town want or need. It's not. Surely you don't expect the townspeople to stay inside and all become couch potatoes.
30 seconds.
We live in a world where there is too much dependence on sedentary lifestyle choices. I don't want to live in a place that restricts how I can use the outdoor spaces in my beautiful town. And I don't want the next generations of children to be denied the untethered freedom childhood that I enjoyed and I know you enjoyed. This feels like a targeted attack on one development and in turn is a blatant, unfounded, unfair attack on a taxpayer in the town of Southampton. So I ask you, what is your motive here?
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker, Robert DeLuca, Group for the East End.
Good afternoon, Supervisor Schneiderman, members of the Town Board. My name is Bob DeLuca, and I serve as President of Group for the East End. I'm here to ask you to adopt Resolution 986, which would amend the Southampton Town Open Space Law to establish reasonable limits on active recreational areas within planned residential developments, and there's a couple of reasons why. First of all, in a big way, Southampton is in the midst of a water crisis. You deal with it every day. And every possible opportunity, you've adopted water quality plans, you've got comprehensive plans talking about the need to protect water quality. Anything that you could do to amend the code to better protect water quality, we think you should. Frankly, we know the board discussed a broader moratorium earlier this year. We would have favored that moratorium as a larger, more broad sweeping look at the Aquifer Protection Overlay District, which is our source water for drinking water as well as our bays and harbors. That didn't happen. And so with the facts that we have today, we support every individual effort that can help improve water quality and related natural resources protection. This resolution really is a clarifying amendment. If you know this law, those of us who've worked with it for years, it simply sets a limit on how much active recreation you can have. It doesn't make it go away. The town open space law, as you know, was authorized by the state of New York and then followed by the town of Southampton to protect natural resources, not to create active recreation areas. Now, the active recreation areas with which we have no problem as a potential part of that planned residential development should not be in competition for the natural resource areas that you're trying to protect. The supervisor, you probably, East Hampton Town actually requires more in its minimum open space requirements than we do. My concern is that minimum open space requirements become maximum standards over time if they're in competition for other uses on the property, and that's really at the core of the issue. The planning process really in front of the planning board at this point has, the law is not great in this area. It basically says you can have active recreational use and offers no real guidance as to what that means, which has been a debated issue now for months about what does that mean and how do we interpret it. Also, you should know the amendment is more than reasonable in terms of what it allows. 10 acres, and I looked this up because I didn't know, you could fit 7 NFL football fields in 10 acres. You could fit 150 regulation tennis courts. So I don't think there's a risk of too many people not being able to move around on a major subdivision that has 10 acres of area dedicated to recreational open space. What it does do is say there's a confined area where we're going to allow recreational open space activities, and we're going to also have active recreation. It just defines them. The planning board
30 seconds.
is constantly befuddled these days with what it's supposed to be doing with the laws that it has. And simply stated, this is a minor clarifying amendment. It is more than generous in the amount of area that it provides, and basically it should be one in a series of local code amendments that you used to help better protect our water quality. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Larry Oxman is next.
Good afternoon, Larry Oxman, East End Commercial Real Estate. I had things to say, but following Mr. DeLuca, I couldn't disagree more with what he has just said. All right. I think that this is an axe to a taking of property. Your code is very clear. It talks about a 65% for open space. Your code also says that active recreation is not part of open space. So why it's even being discussed here, I don't understand. Okay. Take a deep breath. All right. I put together a chart, and basically, if we use 100 acres as an example, because it's very easy to work with, your code says that 65 acres would be open space. 35% is non-open space. Out of that 35%, you're only permitted a 5% coverage for your buildings and your accessory buildings. What happens to the remaining acreage? So the way the law is being proposed talks about a 2% coverage for active recreational. The example that Mr. DeLuca used was very specific, and that's really quite telling, that this code is supposed to go across the board for everyone. How many, I really would like to know, I'm sorry that Kyle's not here, how many applications does this affect? All right. This is just wrong. I'd also like to know the determination that of 10 units, for 1 acre for 10 units, where's that coming from? Is it just coming out of the sky? Is that based on some study? Is that based on any type of an impact statement? Where is that coming from? So, and the limit to 10 acres. Again, where's that coming from? When you get into much smaller subdivisions that this code will affect, you're going to not have room for much. I have a letter that I'd like to submit to everyone. Lastly, I believe that this whole code change, proposed code change, I think it really reeks of irregularity and bias against the developers of the Lewis Road PRD. Considering that there's pending litigation against the town and specifically members of this board, I would ask that they recuse themselves from any type of a vote on this proposal, on this resolution. Remember, when it comes to a conflict of interest, it's not necessarily direct, it's the appearance. And this has a strong appearance of a conflict of interest. I really think that you must recuse yourself. If it's a good change of code, it will pass. Let me hand my letter in, please. Thank you.
Larry, can put those two.
Okay, Heather Giorgenti is next.
Great, thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. Heather Giorgenti. I'm a resident of East Quogue. I'm actually just reading a couple letters today from members of the community who weren't able to make it. Dear Supervisor Schneiderman and Councilman Schiavone. As a resident taxpayer of the town, I am writing to you today with my objection to your Town Board Resolution 2018-086 modifying Code Section 247.9. Its legislative intent is not necessary, and it's obvious that you're attempting to target a particular piece of property. This type of change to the code can have an impact on future properties yet to be revealed, and for many good reasons, this code as it exists should remain in place. Please vote on no resolution. Please vote no on Resolution 218-986. Larry Hoffman. Next letter. I very recently learned of an effort of Councilman Schiavone to enact legislation that would limit the amount of space that could be devoted to recreational purposes in a planned residential development. This proposal is a transparent attempt to derail the Hills project by prohibiting a golf course and should be emphatically rejected for a number of reasons. First, it is probably illegal. Second, it without a doubt increases the exposure of the town to liability in the $100 million lawsuit against it. Most importantly, it seeks to thwart the will of a substantial majority of people who are most affected by the project, the residents of East Quogue. This entire labored process since the town board's misguided rejection of a PDD caused by the entirely undemocratic requirement of a supermajority has been government at its worst. Avoid a decision, pass the buck, delay. This proposition is surely advanced in the name of protecting the aquifer, but in all the public hearings on the PDD, I heard no actual scientific evidence that the aquifer would be adversely affected by this golf course. All the evidence was to the contrary, and that was to be backed up by numerous testing protocols. Of course, a golf course can be used only by residents in an accessory use. Why else would the golf course with this restriction be built? It's an issue that never should have been sent to the board, but now that it is there, the board should make a decision and the town should get on with the rest of the approval process expeditiously. Peter Sartorius. Next letter. I'm sorry I cannot be there today. I will make this short and not so sweet. What you're proposing is a disaster. You're targeting a specific developer by attempting to change the rules to block their application. When you're losing in a game, do you change the rules so that you can win? When you don't like a proposed project, do you change the law? This will result in multiple lawsuits from various people and companies. You will lose and the taxpayer will pay. You obviously do not represent the community. You represent yourself and special interest groups. Shame
30
on
seconds.
you. Dan Sullivan. And then lastly is a letter from the Southampton Business Alliance. On behalf of the Board of Directors of the Southampton Business Alliance, I am writing to voice our objection to the resolution's proposed change to Town Code 247-9. We believe that the intent of this legislation will negatively affect both private property owners and businesses in the town of Southampton.
3 minutes.
From Cheryl Heather, Executive Director. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Pamela Harwood?
Hello, Pamela Harwood, Chair of the Bridgehampton CAC. As I understand it, the Resolution 986 that's on the agenda today is simply on the agenda to see whether or not to proceed with discussing this resolution at a public hearing. And I see no reason at all to stop that process. I would think that you would want as much public input as you can in order to determine whether or not there is a validity to this resolution. I believe that our codes, many of our codes, are not keeping up with the fast pace of development in the town of Southampton, and many of them maybe should be changed. I think it's worth public input. And right now, the planning board has, the majority of the planning board at least, has passed a few variances that increase development and perhaps anything that can give the planning board more of a specific guideline as to what is good for the town and what is not good for the town as far as the community, not the business interests. And I don't see limiting things, especially in planned residential districts, as limiting the public's ability to take advantage of these. Mostly these things would be only accessible to the people who live in that planned residential district. So I simply am saying today that I think it's worth a public hearing. Thank you very much.
Bonnie Doyle?
Yes, good afternoon. Bonnie Doyle from Hampton Bays. Today I'm speaking on behalf of the Hampton Bays Civic Association, and we're asking that you take this opportunity to re-examine the open space law and use it to protect our waters. We all care deeply about our waters and the environment, and we urge you to approve this resolution and schedule a public hearing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Is that on behalf of the CEC? Or
The Civic.
Civic. Andrea Spilka?
Good afternoon. I'm Andrea Spilka. I'm president of the Southampton Town Civic Coalition. And I have heard people talk about beaches and swimming and all these important recreational issues. But part of what I believe is the fight that we're fighting right now is to preserve just those things, but to do it in a very controlled way. And we do think that the resolution today should go forward to a public hearing so that people can discuss it, because I do think it's necessary. We appreciate the fact that the town, as well as the county, keep spending money to undo what we've done to the water. And let's not forget what's happening right now in the Florida area and how severe their troubles are. If we're not careful, we're not going to be far behind. What I believe is that what's the point of spending all of this money if you're not also going to protect the land? And that's what this starts to do. It's just one, and I'm hoping a series of changes to the code that will do just that. And I think if you stop it now, you'll stop and give every civic person and every civic leader that volunteers all of their time here the idea that, you know what, the town of Southampton doesn't care enough to really move forward to protect the land and stop overdevelopment. As I understand it, sorry, I lost my place. We do need many improvements to the town code. It's not specific enough in a lot of areas. This is just one improvement. And I do believe that this will, in the long run, give us and the community that we tend to represent and work hard for, a more level playing field, so that at the end of the day, the decisions aren't going down to the planning board or the zoning board or to the courts. You should be setting up the rules that everyone is playing by. And we've identified this, but plus several other rules that should really be taken a look at. So I ask you today to please approve this rule, or at least approve this to go forward to a public hearing. Let everyone be heard who wants to be heard on this. This is not directed just at the hills, although, as you know, I don't believe that the golf course is in the right place, but that's my opinion. I do think that on behalf of several organizations, including the Southampton Town Civic Coalition, the CAC West, the Spionk-Remsenburg Civic Association, the Little Fresh Pond Association, the Watermill CAC, Save Sag Harbor, and I'll be turning in a letter of theirs, and the Hampton Bays Civic Association. You've already heard from Bonnie. We ask that all of you support that this clarifying resolution goes forward, and we sincerely hope that you'll be making more improvements to the zoning code in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. Larry or Lawrence Citarelli?
Members of the board, Lawrence Citarelli, resident and developer, West Hampton, Remsenburg area. I want to thank you all for your time and your efforts to a obviously difficult and trying process. I just would like to make a couple of points on a more general basis, in that as a fellow coach of youth in our community for over a decade, we struggle very, very badly with the ability to have the ball fields and have the football fields and have the lacrosse fields. I worry as a developer the impacts that we'll make in a decision such as this. We need more, of these type uses in these spaces, and to limit those things as our populations grow and our demands grow. It's not the same neighborhood that it was when I was a kid, born and raised here. It's not the same place that you were. So while it's troubling and difficult, I think that we often in trying to limit something such as recreational uses, while I'm all for prudent development, and I had my share of a very difficult 10 years in a less than as of right subdivision in Remsenburg, I would be careful and it would be wise to not do something that's so unprecedented and maybe setting the wrong precedent and opening ourselves up to future problems. I think it behooves us to ensure that we look at today's decisions with an idea toward tomorrow and what that means. I'm in the camp, frankly, that these hills, the gentlemen from the Hills are a wonderful organization. They've done some tremendous stuff for Maria Air, bless you, for West Hampton Beach with the dune deck. I think they've done some extremely credible and not necessary, generous things toward our community. I think they're to be applauded for that. I think when we start to broach the topics of moving the goalposts, changing the rules to stop one guy or one developer, that becomes politicized, and I think we've all had too much of that on both sides, to be fair. I'm worried that rushing often leads to not fully understanding the details. I think that the zoning board, advises of a means of achieving a project that isn't going to adversely affect the macroeconomics or the microeconomics of what's going to go on. I'm a developer, and I'm the first one to tell you that you don't need another 100+ single-family homes in East Quogue. They're not going to sell. They're going to put 2.735 children into the schools.
30 seconds.
They're going to burden the taxpayer, burden the town, burden all the infrastructure, right? We just got done passing a whole bunch of sewage stuff, right, that we're trying to help towns get up to speed, and I think that we do ourselves a big injustice by not putting forth prudent developers, prudent people who are doing a good job. The town's own engineers and scientific folk, I'm not that, the townspeople said this is the best project. So I worry that you're gonna force these guys into a lawsuit.
3 minutes.
You're going to exasperate an existing problem, and for what? To limit recreational use? The science isn't there. It's been proven that it's not there, and you should be applauding good guys and not punishing them, I guess is the point. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That's all I have for cards. Is there anyone else who wishes to be heard? Oh, more cards? I have more cards coming my way. All right. Joanne Clark. Is there Joanne Clark here?
Vicki, did you do a card?
I didn't do a card.
Do you want to do it? Nah, just a card. They keep a record of it.
Yeah, if you could fill out a card. Go. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Go ahead, Joanne.
Hi, my name is Joanne Clark. I just want to read a quick letter on behalf of Brian Babcock, who could not be here today. Brian lives in East Quogue. He's working today, like most people, and is unable to come to Town Hall for a 1 p.m. meeting. I read Mr. Scavoni's proposal, and I'm asking that you throw it out completely today. What a waste of time. This is obviously a move to harm Discovery Land's current proposed development. There is no other reason for this. There is no call by the public to limit recreational areas. Come on. I know that many people will find this to be an obvious political move by Mr. Scavoni, and I can tell you that they will not appreciate this at all. Town Board, please toss this out today. Do your job. Show that you can be logical and fair. We don't need you to hold a hearing for this. Thank you, Brian Babcock, East Quogue.
All right, thank you, Joanne.
Thank you.
Okay, Robert Dallas? Is there Robert Dallas? Vicki, do you want to get me that card?
Hi, my name is Robert Dallas. I'm a resident taxpayer of Southampton. I think this proposed change is really ludicrous, but I'm actually here to read a letter from somebody else who is not able to be here today. The letter reads, "My name is Dan Manning, and I live in East Quogue on Spinney Road. I'm unable to attend this meeting today, as are most people in East Quogue and around town who work and have regular responsibilities. But I have to speak up on this crazy law that is being proposed by Mr. Schiavone. First of all, what a crock. This is so obviously directed at the Hills property and is so blatant an effort to reduce the value of that property that I am ashamed of Mr. Schiavone's proposal. Second, the timing of this is also an obvious ploy to avoid due process for the property owner. Mr. Schiavone is proposing this law in a rush, out of the blue, based on nothing but political interests because the ZBA is set up to rule on Discovery's as-of-right subdivision application. Mr. Schiavone, your ploy is so obvious to everyone in town, it is without merit and is denying a taxpayer their lawful property rights. Town Board, you can do better. Do not support a hearing for a law without basis and without any merit, and one which I would expect would also increase the legal pressure and exposure on the town of Southampton and all of its taxpayers, including my family and the residents of East Quogue. Stop this madness now. Hasn't its community endured enough? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Jessica Insalaka.
Hello, Town Board. My name is Jessica Insalako, and I live with my family in East Quogue. I've been researching and supporting and working on this project for years. I probably know the most about it of anyone in this room. I almost fell out of my chair last week when I heard about Mr. Schiavone's proposal to limit and effectively reduce the amount of recreational space in residential areas in the town of Southampton. How ridiculous. Our citizenry should be less active. They should have limited amount of space to play beyond already stringent limitations. Less tennis, less basketball. Next thing, you'll say we shouldn't play baseball. How un-American can you get? Limiting sports, limiting opportunities for people to engage in healthy activities. So of course it's ridiculous and it's absurd. But it is your, Mr. Schiavone's, new way to attack Discovery Land and their application in front of the Town Planning Board and ZBA. You tried this a while back with an unfounded moratorium proposal that failed. So why the heck are you entertaining this? Let me save this board and the residents of this town precious time that could be otherwise used on good stuff, not this. I have been to every hearing relating to this property, and I have witnessed many other hearings in town. I have never heard anyone argue for less active recreation space in this town. In this, the contrary. People are generally looking for more active recreation space for their families. There are, however, people like Mr. Schiavone who want to continue to devalue Discovery Land's property in East Quogue. So you don't need a public hearing to know that a reduction in recreational space is a ridiculous proposition. This proposal should not see the light of day. Further, you should be as outraged as I am that Mr. Schiavone is not only promoting something that is completely illogical, he's doing so entirely to go after one property owner, Discovery Land, with this effort. Why is Mr. Schiavone allowed to single out this taxpayer and this property with this proposed law? Why now, in the midst of Discovery's application process? Why is Mr. Schiavone allowed to seek to devalue this property further than that's already been devalued by this town board? This is unlawful, it's unjust. It is another lawsuit waiting to happen, in my opinion, not a lawyer. So I'm here to speak out in unequivocal opposition to Mr. Schiavone's proposal to promote even a hearing for a local law that limits this active recreational space. I'm all for public hearings on issues with merit, not to abuse a local taxpayer. So if you move ahead with this, Town Board, you're promoting the denial of due process. By supporting this legislation ahead of the decision from the ZBA, due November 15th, regarding the accessory use of the golf course for the residents of this property, you're supporting Mr. Schiavone's plot to drive down the value of this particular piece of property, again. On top of that, you're supporting an absurd notion and reduction in the quality of the general health of the public of the town of Southampton. So I ask you to withdraw this worthless, politically motivated legislation today. It's just wrong.
Thank you. Next up, Ed DeVita.
Good afternoon, Supervisor and councilmen and women. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I am a partner in Discovery Land Company. I'm also a member of the ownership group of a 591-acre piece of property on Lewis Road, and we currently have a subdivision in process with the Planning Board. I think you're aware. Of the 591 acres of that application, 424 are proposed to be permanently preserved in place. Another 33 are proposed to be preserved through revegetation, a concept that was introduced earlier and attractive to the board. That total of 457 acres is 78% of the total property of that application. Our legal advisor asked me to read a letter that he drafted for you. This is a letter directed to the Town Board of Southampton. It's from Mr. Stephen Barshoff, and the subject is possible public hearing on local law to amend Town of Southampton Code, Section 247-9, the proposed local law. That's agenda item 35 today. Dear Town Board members, we are counsel to DLV Quag in pending litigation against the Town Board, the Town and Town Council members Bouvier and Lofsted, who have been sued both officially and individually. Unfortunately, because I am still running a fever and unable to personally attend today's Town Board meeting. Accordingly, my client will read this letter to the Board. Normally, we would await the public hearing to comment on a proposed local law. In this case, because what is proposed is so obviously in bad faith, duplicitous, and a sham, the Town Board should not even set the proposed local law for public hearing. And if the Town Board chooses to do so anyway, and to ultimately to adopt the proposed local law, we want the record to be crystal clear that the Town Board was fully informed of the legal consequences from the earliest possible moment. The proposed local law is for one purpose and one purpose only: to prohibit DLV Quag from developing its property as a residential subdivision with a private golf course as a recreational amenity. Even though DLV Quag is not mentioned in the proposed local law, people here are not fools. Everyone on the Town Board and in this room knows that the real purpose of the proposed local law is to prohibit DLV Quag's proposed private golf course. The sponsor of the proposed local law and the Town Board should at least have the decency to be forthright and admit the obvious truth.
30 seconds.
The timing of the public hearing is not random. The Town Board knows full well that on November 15, 2018, the Zoning Board of Appeals will issue its decision on the Planning Board's request that the ZBA determine whether the DLV Quag's proposed private golf course is an accessory use to its proposed large-scale residential subdivision. On October 23rd, public hearing date is proposed so the Town Board could act on the proposed local law prior to November 15 and render any determination by the ZBA moot. The normal time periods for consideration and study of a local law are being cast aside, and the reason for the rush is obvious. The sponsor wants the Town Board action before the ZBA issues its decision, plain and simple. The end of the proposed local law states that there would be no financial impact from the adoption of the proposed local law. The Town Board should give some careful consideration to this statement. Adoption of the sham proposed local law would be an intentional act and a knowing and malicious deprivation of DLV Quag's constitutionally protected rights. This is not good faith piece of proposed legislation. To be accurate, may I have
how much
just
longer is it?
20 seconds.
Go ahead.
To be accurate, the local law should be retitled a, quote, local law to put the screws to DLV Quag, quote. The Town Board cannot adopt sham local laws which are ostensibly general in form, but whose purpose and application are to deprive a property owner of its constitutionally protected rights. Not only would adoption of the proposed local law require DLV Quag to amend its current 1983 claims against the town and the Town Board, but DLV Quag would be forced to name individually any town council member who voted in favor of adoption. The millions of dollars in liability are most certainly a financial impact. So too would be the liability for a regulatory taking, given the extreme severity of the impact of the proposed local law on the value of DLV Quag's property. To grossly understate the obvious, the Town Board might want to reconsider whether adoption of the proposed local law would have no financial impacts. Put simply, the Town Board should not set a public hearing on the proposed local law. The town board should not waste time on a public hearing for a local law that is an obvious sham and proposed in bad faith. This town board should be better than that. Yours truly, Stephen Barshoff.
Okay.
Thank you.
Vicki Hills?
Hi, Vicki Hillis, Hampton Bays. Thank you for the chance to speak. I just have to say, I almost fell out of my chair. I've been in and out of town hall intermittently over a couple of decades here, and I remember the quasi-public service use district, QIPSUD. I remember PDDs. I know the heartaches and the problems it caused everybody on whatever side of the issue they had. And that was about something that had a public benefit. You're now talking about, 986 is now talking about what we know as the cluster subdivisions to protect underlying resources. And this amendment's necessary because now that the PDD has been eliminated, developers can be motivated to try to accomplish the same goals they had under the PDD law, under the town's open space law, but without any community benefits. And that's a real problem. The town's open space subdivision rules are one of the most significant tools protecting open space and water quality in Southampton town. And as I perceive what's going on, there's confusion about what they can do with the current existing cluster law. And they want to do something that's causing more confusion. And to be clear, they're not deciding on this law today. They're deciding if it should go to a public hearing. And just from these few minutes in this room, it clearly needs a public hearing because I've heard disinformation. I've been confused about things that have been said here. It's what I consider fake news because the comment that the supermajority requirement on a PDD was not something decided by a handful of elected officials who are representing the people who elected them, so that would have been legal. It is actually something that went to a referendum and the entire public community got to vote on it. So it's not on them. And the ball fields, this is about private property. Ball fields on private property would not necessarily be available to people who didn't live in that private community or on that private property. And if you're worried, where the gentleman went, if you're worried about having ball fields, go to Red Creek Park. Every time I go in there, most of the ball fields are not being used. So they exist. You can, get creative. Not everybody needs a ball field in their backyard. Clearly, there's confusion. You don't have to agree with me. And they're not deciding today. Obviously, you need a public hearing, and I would appreciate it if you have one. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, that's the last card I have. Is anyone else who has not spoken, who wishes to be heard, who did not fill out a card? There's a woman in the back. Come on forward.
I live in the North Sea area. I'm a member of the Little Fresh Pond Association, North Sea Neighbors. I wasn't planning on speaking today, but after I heard the clear drama and the fear that some of these developers are trying to instill in you, I felt it's only fair to move this forward to a public event where more people get involved, more developers if they want. We're talking as homeowners here for the long-term health and wellness of our waterways. I live on Little Fresh Pond. I'm a member of the Surfighters, and we test, and we have seen since some of our local developments, 665 Majors Path, we've seen the water quality go down since we've started testing. And we have to continue to fight to keep public access safe for use. So please, we're only asking that we move forward to have more public input, more information on this. And it's really only limiting the amount of fertilizer and the amount of logical drainage that would be allowed to go down into the soil. From an engineering perspective, I'm an engineer, we need to allow filtration and not have all the fertilizer that's really affecting the nitrogen in the water and the phosphorus. So please just go forward and have this be a public event October 23rd.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And thank you for going forward with this brave thing against some very heavy players that are looking to oppose this logical event. Thank you.
Okay, anyone else who has not spoken who wishes to be heard? Going once, twice, 3 times. Okay, a motion to close public portion.
Second.
Second by Council Scalera, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay, to the agenda. Is there anybody who wants to take anything out of order?
Yeah, let's take, could I make a motion to take Resolution 2018-986 out of order? This is, of course, the one that many people were discussing.
Which is the page?
Page 30.
34.
Page 34, sorry.
34, all right, so Councilman Schiavone is making a motion to take, let me find it, 986 of 2018 out of order. Is there a second?
Second.
A second by Councilman Bouvier to take out of order. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Okay, and the motion is now before us.
I am the sponsor of this particular legislation. This is, I'm asking the town board to consider a public hearing on limiting the amount of active recreation in a planned residential development. Now, the reason why I'm doing this, why I'm putting this before the board, is because the code is silent on active recreation in planned residential developments. And that, in my mind, is causing a challenge to the board, to the town governance in general. This particular application involves a number of parcels throughout the town of Southampton. In the Aquifer Protection Overlay District alone, this could potentially affect 109 minor subdivisions. It could affect 22 major subdivisions. And then there are 39 vacant parcels. That's 170 pieces of land in Southampton town that this would affect. Now, of course, there are many people who are here today about one particular application, and I would submit that that particular application has illuminated a gap in our code. Our code does not reflect active recreation in PRDs. So in the absence of code, we have what's kind of in the process now. Our lower boards making decisions. They're going to make a decision. I don't know what the decisions are going to be, but that will probably be ending up in court. And then a judge is going to be making a decision on this. That is no way to make town code. I believe that firmly. I think that it is incumbent upon this board to make the code of the town. In fact, it's written into the New York State Constitution in Article 9 of the Constitution that the town boards has this power. It's part of public municipality law, municipal home rule power of New York State. It's also embedded in our code that we are the ones that make zoning regulations throughout the town. We are the elected representatives. I truly believe we are the ones that should be making this law that is going to affect the landscape of the town for generations to come. So I think it's important that we all know that this isn't one application or pre-application as it is. This is potentially hundreds of pieces of land throughout the town. Now, we do have code in our design standards for subdivisions. This is Chapter 292, which indicates that we are to set aside 5 acres per 100 units or lots. And I looked at that and I said, okay, we have standards for this. And that to me was a firm enough foundation to put a maximum limit forward. After some research, I found out that the National Recreation and Parks Association, they recommend 10 acres per 1,000 people. The American Association of Planning Officials, they recommend 10 acres per 1,000 people. So looking at our earlier standard in 292, I thought 5 acres was small, and I went with the 10-acre suggestions of some of these professional planning groups. 10 acres is a significant amount of land. You could have You could have an equestrian center, an aquatic center there. You can have an aquatic center and 12 tennis courts there. 10 acres is bigger than the SYS portion in North Sea. 10 acres is the size of the East Quogue Elementary School grounds, building, parking lot, entrance, the whole, right there. So on that 10 acres, you could put a lot of different uses for the PRD. So that is why 10 acres, I believe it's within our powers, and I urge the town board to move this code change to a public debate. And thank you.
Tommy John, I just have a question because I'm not clear on my reading of this then. The 5 acre is a minimum that we set up in the code, and that's a 5 acre minimum on recreational areas. And because the answer that I got in terms of how many potential lots this could impact is different from what you're saying, so I want to make sure I understand this. Because this says that you shall not exceed 1 acre for each 10 dwelling units and or 10 acres, whichever is less. Are you saying this applies to minor subdivisions? Because my reading of this is that it only applies to those that would be 10 units or 10 acres or less, whichever is less.
That's correct.
So I don't understand how it
Oh,
applies
okay,
to
so the minor
subdivisions or
subdivision, I was
anything like that.
incorrect, eliminating 109, that's less than 10.
Okay, what was the next? I'm just trying to understand it because it seems that what it's trying to affect is a lot greater than what you're saying. I don't know if we want to get Kyle here to answer that.
Oh, well, my point was that this was not a piece of legislation aimed at one particular parcel or application or pre-application.
Okay, then let me ask you.
If you're gonna-
If there's a legitimate purpose, and I assume that you have one, when you put this forward, if that's the concern, would you be willing to exempt that from the application? And then whether or not I think this has merit or not, because I have my own personal reservations, but I would certainly agree to go to a public hearing on that.
Well, considering that an application has not been filed as of yet, no, I wouldn't.
How did I word that? Would he consider, or,
So no, I think the answer, so the question was, would he consider
would he consider exempting the
ones in
application
process?
one's in the process?
Which
So-
is one.
Which is one. So I'm just,
And the answer
and that
was-
would take
And-
away some of the.
And also, I want to, I'm hoping that this would give guidance to our planning board and zoning board and with the work that they have to do.
Okay.
Okay, so is there a second? There's only a motion to approve. Right, we had a motion to take out of order, and we voted on that. I have a motion to approve. Is there a second?
Well, on that motion, I just want to say that I think someone had said something about not being able to decide if a law has merit without a public hearing. And I agree with that. I think that the councilman has the right to bring law forward. I might not necessarily agree with it, but I think that the public have a right to weigh in, and I think you have a right to debate. So on that reason, to protect the rights of the councilman for a public hearing, and that's all we're talking about. So be clear with the public, that's all that's in front of us is a public hearing. I would welcome a debate and more input from the public rather than just a small portion of a public portion. So I will vote.
You'll second.
All right, so there's a second. So any other debate? All right, I guess we'll call the vote. Maybe we want to do this a roll call vote?
Sure.
Okay. Sure. Can I ask for a roll call on this one?
Tommy John Scavone,
Aye.
John Bouvier,
Aye.
Supervisor Schneiderman,
No on the advice of council.
Councilwoman Scalera.
I standardly always allow for the public hearing, and I assure you it's not out of fear. I'm a land use attorney myself, and on the advice of council, I'm a no.
And Councilwoman Lofstad.
On the advice of council, I vote no.
Okay, so the resolution fails. Okay, we are back to the top of the agenda. All right,
we're still on.
I'm sorry?
No,
Okay, so Resolution 952 of 2018, this is authorizing the Hampton Bays Volunteer Ambulance Corporation to dispose of computers.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Resolution 953 authorizes the purchase and installation of colored and imprinted concrete sidewalk and drainage at Good Ground Park.
second.
Seconded, I'm sorry, who was the second?
Julie or John?
Okay, John, Councilman Bouvier has the second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 218-954 to authorize the purchase of office trailer from Casona Leasing Incorporated from the Suffolk County Contract for Waste Management and declare the existing trailer as surplus.
I'll second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Resolution 955 authorizes the supervisor to sign a contract extension for electric landscaping equipment with Mean Green Products LLC, DBA Mean Green Mowers.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 956 authorizes the supervisor to execute a contract amendment with L. Clay McLean Associates, PC, for Old Ponquag Bridge piers.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 2018-957 to authorize the supervisor to execute an intermunicipal agreement with the Village of North Haven.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Resolution 958 of 2018 authorizes the supervisor to sign a contract for the Circus Guy for a performance at Good Ground Park. Did you have this issue with the name?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
What?
You had an issue with the
Seconded.
name. I thought from work session, but he cleared it up. Okay.
Okay, seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. The next one we've
Town Board
already
Resolution
taken care of.
218. Nope, I'm sorry, we already took that out.
So we're at 960.
We're at 960.
Tommy John?
Okay. Town Board Resolution 2018-960 to authorize the supervisor to sign extension to intermunicipal agreement with the Village of Quogue for parcel located at 114A Jessop's Avenue, Quogue, Suffolk County Tax Map Number 902-9-1-15.1.
Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scalera, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 961 declares items as surplus items.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Scalera, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 962 declares vehicle surplus and authorizes disposal. Is there a second, please?
Second.
Second for Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Resolution 2018-963, authorize the increase to contract with Ryan D'Amico.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Scalera, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 218-964 to recall and amend Town Board Resolution 218-907 with Rayner Group EE and LS, BLLC, for services to be provided for Meadowlark Lane road improvements in Bridgehampton.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scalera, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Resolution 965 recalls and amends Town Board Resolution 836 of 2018, amendment with Cash and Associates PC for services to be provided at the Town and Trustees Bay Avenue facility.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 2018-966. This is a 2018 notice to bidders for River Avenue culvert replacement.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 967 is co-sponsored with Councilman Bouvier as a notice to bidders for sale of West Hampton Beach Community Center.
Second.
Seconded by the co-sponsor, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Town Board Resolution 218-968, co-sponsored with Councilwoman Lofstad, to accept the donation to Community Housing Opportunity Fund from Jose Outerfall.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 969 amends the 2018 adopted budget for community preservation.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 970 amends the 2018 adopted budget for various departments.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 971 amends the 2018 adopted budget for the Youth Bureau.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Lofstad, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 972 authorizes closure of restricted account.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. The next one we did already.
Yep.
So we're at 974, resolution adopting amendment to Town Code Section 10-5 as it relates to the procedure for capital program amendments. We had a public hearing on this earlier. Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 975 appoints Cook Marin Associates as insurance brokers for the town.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 976 of 2018 authorizes the Town Management Services Administrator to purchase the necessary property, casualty, auto, liability insurance policies.
Second.
This is seconded by Councilman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Resolution 977 recognizes that October 2018 is Bully Prevention and Awareness Month in the town of Southampton, and again, we'll be having a seminar on that on October 24th at Hampton Bays Middle School.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Resolution 978 is a cost reimbursement waiver for the East Quogue PTA Halloween Parade on October 27th, 2018, from 12:30 p.m. to 2 p.m.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Resolution 979 is a cost reimbursement waiver for Run with the Torch in honor of Our Lady of Guadalupe Run on December 12th, 2018, from 2 p.m. to 4 p.m.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 980 of 18, 2018 part-time salaries.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 981, 2018, I need to withdraw. So,
I'm sorry, you're withdrawing?
I'm withdrawing it. 982 accepts resignation of an ordinance inspector.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Wish him
Approved.
well.
Yeah, absolutely. He did a great job. 983 of 18 appoints Monica Panaccia to senior neighborhood aide position in senior services.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved.
We did.
984.
We did that.
We did, yeah.
And we did 985.
We did
That seems
985.
so long ago.
And we did 986.
And we did 986. So we're at 987 of 18. It's notice of public hearing on the acquisition of lands of 2913 Montauk Highway LLC, Bridgehampton, and amends the CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 988 of 18 accepts deed of dedication for Woodland Farms Road, North Sea.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Lofstad. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved. 989 of 18, the subject of an earlier public hearing, authorizes the acquisition of lands of Rotondi Properties LLC in Noyak and amends the CPF management and stewardship plan to include that property.
Second.
Second by Councilman Scalera. This is the one on the right by Trout Pond. Seconded. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. I think that's a great acquisition. Approved. 990, we already did. Okay, everybody grab the walk-on packet. There are 6 resolutions in the walk-on packet. Take a second to look at them. I'd like to make a motion to, walk all 6 on.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, they're all before us, so we'll take them one by one. 30279 authorizes additional funds for Devitt Spellman Barrett LLP as it relates to, somebody help me.
Vija Vinkel. That's my guess.
Versus Shea et al. Vishvinkel versus Shea et al.
That was pretty good.
That's good. It's good.
Second.
Rumpelstiltskin is easier. Seconded by Councilwoman Scalera. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
ID 30280 releases a performance bond in connection with the site plan application of the Parish Art Museum.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, approved.
Resolution 30281 releases a performance bond in connection with the site plan application of 1630 North Highway.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Scavone. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. 30282 authorizes the town attorney to settle the litigation of James Kiernan versus the town of Southampton.
Second.
Seconded by Councilwoman Scalera. Any discussion? I'll call the vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Okay, approved unanimously. 30288 is warrant number 19, capital number 19, CPF number 19, and payroll liability.
Second.
Second by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Approved. And lastly, 30290, which I referred to earlier, is establishment of the Southampton Town and Shinnecock Indian Nation Joint Cultural Heritage Protection and Stewardship Committee.
On the motion?
Yes, well, can I get a second first?
Second?
Second by Councilman Bouvier.
And then on the motion, I'd
Sure.
like to be added as co-sponsor?
Absolutely. Sunday, will you list John as a co-sponsor? So let me just explain this real briefly. So it sort of came up with this Hawthorne property where we were thinking of entering into a stewardship agreement with the Shinnecock Nation to sort of manage that property. There were concerns, though, about liability issues, insurance issues, and the cost. And it just seemed to make more sense for the town to manage its own properties, but with some of these culturally sensitive properties, to do it with coordination and communication with the affected stakeholders, in this case, the Shinnecock Nation. So where we have properties that have culturally sensitive attributes like burials or archaeological remains, to have a standing committee that had members of both the Shinnecock Nation and the town to work together to guide how those properties are managed. And I had a number of discussions with the Shinnecock Nation and with Mary Wilson about this, and we came up with this composition. There'd be 3 members of the Shinnecock Nation, Mary Wilson, or whoever our CPF coordinator, chairperson, would chair the organization. Our senior environmental analyst, which would be Barney Shea in this case, chairman of our landmarks committee, Ed Wozniacki, you heard earlier, and the chairperson of the Community Preservation Fund Advisory Committee or their designee. Also, with the case of the landmarks committee chair could designate somebody. And then 3 members to be designated by the Shinnecock Indian Nation. This resolution specifically lists several properties that we already have. Let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, looks like 5, 6 properties that are listed that are already known to be culturally sensitive. It does not list the property we authorized me to sign the contract for today, the Hawthorne property. So once this is established, there'll be a subsequent resolution adding that to it once it's acquired. Any questions?
No, just, in addition to that, we've talked about other things that we could do, particularly with our police department, on how scenes are handled when bones are discovered, not just as a crime scene, but particularly in those sensitive areas, that there needs to be a protocol in place. And I think to be able to advise the police department on that basis, I think is important to this, because usually it's the first place where these remains are found, and how they're handled and how they're identified, I think is critical. So I think we're going a long way to try to alleviate some of the concerns and issues, I think, that come up, particularly with development. So.
Yeah, and the Shinnecock Nation, as you know, has long been asking for this type of dialogue when it comes to properties that they believe are sacred properties, or burial sites, and other historical properties. So I think this may go a long way. I know, Sunday, you're...
If I may just add something, too. We had a meeting this morning of the Historic Burying Ground Committee, which Roger Tolson is the chairman of, and he actually brought to the table some recommendations from other areas for this type of situation, because quite often we get the phone calls and we send someone out, and he suggested the same thing, that we needed a protocol for these types of events. And I think that, it might behoove the committee to have
his input as the chairman of the Historic Burying Ground Committee, too. And, that's up to you, but I think that you would benefit from that. He does a tremendous
I
amount
had been
of
actually
research.
thinking about that too, that we have this, once we create this, we'll have this committee that's really involved with indigenous burial sites and other culturally important properties. We'll have a separate committee that is more for like the traditional cemeteries, the burial committee that's currently there. Does that burial committee deal with other?
Well, we have Reverend Cuffey. That's one of our historic burying
Right.
ground sites. That's in Hampton Bays, near the railroad track. It has a separate area.
This goes a little beyond just burial sites,
No,
but
it does, but for those, when you're trying to set a protocol, because we've been trying to set protocols too for the building department to carve up, when we find cemeteries in the back of people's yards and such, we've been trying to establish some sort of protocol that it's attached to the property, but Roger's feeling this morning was it's more of a situation that it should also come up in a title search, not just in
Sure.
the building department, so that when someone is buying the property, they understand that, as you found there was something found a few weeks ago, that area is carved off and that it's in the title report, not just in the building department, in the event that somebody goes to do something else on the property.
I mean, I brought your name up with that actually in mind, because, the wealth of information that your committee, the group that you're with have, you can maybe better inform what discoveries might be made and how to deal with that, not just from the archeological,
Well,
but
and
from the procedural.
not necessarily me, but
Right.
Roger as the chairman would be the one, I just sit in as an ex officio on that committee
Right.
to help them provide.
I'm open to the idea of putting
And you don't-
additional member on from the standing committee we have on burial sites. I would then probably want to also add another member of the Shinnecock Nation to keep it
And that's up to
balanced.
you and not something you need
But
to decide
but
right now.
the one thing that's kind of unique about this is there are a number of sites, these are not all burial sites. Some of
Yes, I
these are meeting grounds or, areas that were important ceremonial types of properties, and it's not really just restricted just to burial grounds. So
No.
I'd like to actually try to think on that.
No,
But it's
absolutely. I just think for those that are designated, those burial grounds or other types of things, that you may want to at least have him advise or be part of the discussion.
Okay, yeah, so I mean, yeah. And we're going to be revisiting
This is a
this
tremendous
soon
resource
anyway,
for all of us.
when we add additional properties. Hopefully, we'll be adding the Hawthorne
No,
property.
I just want to
to
make
this,
you
so-
aware that he's.
No, it's so noted. I think it's an important point. So let me think on how to do that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so why don't we leave it in its current form?
Yes.
And I will consider the clerk's comments. So there was a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, approved. Okay, that is the last resolution. Is there any other business before the town board? Hearing none, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Bouvier. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.